How's it going, everybody? Maximum Geek here at the PAX East 2013 show floor, talking with GameSpot alum Greg Kasavin, now of Supergiant Games, and we are checking out Transistor, their next project. Greg, how you doing?
Doing really well, though beginning to lose my voice apparently. But
I imagine you guys have had a massive turnout here in the booth. I imagine you've been running around all day showing off this game.
Yeah, although mostly standing still, but yes, yeah, the response has been really amazing. We just announced the game just 2 days ago, or something like that. 2 days.
It all kind of runs together sometimes.
Yeah, and now we're letting people play it for the first time, and the response has been really terrific. To our to our great relief, really. I mean, this is the first time we've revealed a game since I think people kind of cared about us, I would say, because when we first showed Bastion, no one had ever heard of us, so we kind of had nothing to lose. And this time, people expect a lot from us, and so it's been really great to show something and get a good response and see that people like we're going with it.
All right, well, let's go ahead and jump into Transistor and see what it's all about. You want to set up this game for us?
Yes, this is just a little bit of a preamble to set the stage for what's about to happen here. You play as this woman who's called Red, and something, she's having a really bad evening, let's just say. She's about to appear all the way across the city of Cloudbank, and she has appeared here under some pretty bad circumstances. So I'm going to kind of wander up here and discover something else has shown up. And a voice inside it has started, well, that's a bit of a spoiler, I suppose. This here is the Transistor, which is a weapon of extraordinary power. And it does not belong to her, but she's going to take it anyway. And we'll see what happens from there. So she's acquired it, and there's a voice coming from inside of it speaking to her. You can see it flashing and stuff like that. So now, essentially, she is on the run from these forces that are going to pursue this weapon by any means to try to get it back, because it's very important to them. But she's going to decide, I don't think I want to give it back. I think I'm going to hang on to it. So we encounter these unusual kind of creatures, strange beings called the Process. They have a way of, they kind of come right back to life unless you get rid of them permanently. So you need to collect these cells, and they get absorbed into the Transistor, and then the Process are kind of eliminated permanently.
So is the collection of the cell just as simple as it looks like you just ran over and picked them right up?
You just run right over it, yeah. There's, you just got to get close enough to it, but you'll see that kind of comes into play as part of the combat. So here I'm trying to escape, but more of these guys show up, and here's the introduction of something that is, we think is pretty special about this game. At just about any point during combat, you have access to this strategic planning mode, where you can basically sequence your actions and then execute them at sort of a super-powered rate.
And it looks like we had a bit of an action meter. Yeah, we see it refilling there up top that sort of allows us to choose which actions we have access for.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I'm glad you picked up on that quickly. So yeah, as you move around and you can actually undo your actions, you can decide what is the best course of action, and you see it up at the top of the screen showing the sequence, and you could start over. And decide how to best take care of these guys, and then do it.
And then obviously it looks like your stronger attacks take off more of the meter than perhaps just walking around or doing something less.
Yeah, exactly. There's a different balancing of the different abilities and stuff like that, depending on depending on their overall power. So that planning mode allows us to approach the combat and encounters in this game from a really interesting point of view, because it's such a powerful ability that it in turn makes us want to create opponents and situations that are very challenging, so that you could use this ability to overcome them. It's been really fun for us on the team, because we all kind of use it differently. The game is designed so that you can be effective without using it. a lot of the time at least, but it's kind of there to help you out in a pinch and get through tough situations. So whether you use it all the time or whether you use it when you get in trouble, whether you use it to be defensive or to just really lay into guys, that's all up to you. That's part of what is interesting about it to us.
Now I know a large part of the original Bastion for me was having access to all these different weapons and all the different abilities they had therein. Whereas it looks like in this game, Red's that sort of large, oversized sword she's got is sort of an iconic weapon you've built for her. Is that weapon going to sort of have its own set of abilities, like we saw with the weapons in Bastion?
Yeah, the idea is, so the weapon that she has is the Transistor itself, and it possesses a number of different abilities. I'm actually about to get a new one here. Part of sort of the mystery of this game is like the discovering the limit of this thing's powers and all the different powers that it has in it and acquiring new powers. So here, essentially I interacted with what we call a trace. It's almost like a ghost, excuse me. It's like a woman who's been essentially killed by these process creatures, and by sort of integrating her into the Transistor, I now have access to yet another ability. So
she can sort of get her revenge a little bit by granting you this new power.
That is indeed the case. Yeah, so she's sort of coming along for the ride in a way, and so you'll be able to. We don't show a ton of it at the moment, but the idea is that you'll be able to reconfigure many aspects of it. And
I was going to ask, like, are you going to have different ability loadouts, and you can like switch and swap different abilities for your weapon?
Yeah, that's definitely what we're looking at. But we want to play around with it in some surprising ways. So the idea is the Transistor has sort of a chaotic power to it. So we want it to keep kind of surprising you. But yeah, you'll be able to do things like configure it and use a variety of different abilities through it.
Now, are you worried at all about players abusing this time stop mechanic too much and just sort of oversimplifying the combat?
We are not worried about that. We think it like introduces a lot of depth. This actually is an example of an encounter where a strategy that may have been effective in like against the first couple of enemies is less effective here. So this particular enemy, if I attack her, repeatedly, just try to kill her, you discover that as soon as you hit her once, she moves to a new location and creates a copy of herself. So you can't just, unload all of your attacks onto her and kill her in one turn. So we want to play around with those rules quite a bit, and
yeah, because that way it forces you into. It requires multiple turns, no matter what you use.
Yeah, and it requires you to change tactics as well. And that's to us, that's like the promise of this whole thing, is just having to like study these opponents that you're fighting and come up with a plan. And sometimes your plan is very successful, other times it doesn't go quite as you expect. And that's part of the fun of having like a planning mode. If your plan always happened exactly as you thought it would, then it wouldn't be very interesting. We're like I said, we're kind of playing around with that to try and get at the right balance there, where most of the time you feel pretty in control, but not all the time, and hopefully that leads to interesting results.
Something that kind of caught my interest. So you defeated the boss enemy. As boss enemies do, it sprouts out a bunch of like rewards and pickups at the end, but you weren't able to collect them all at once, and it ended up sort of coming back to bite you there when they turned into enemies.
Yeah, that's right, and that's that's an example of how these cells, they just like, if you don't get them quickly enough, they're gonna cause you problems, and that's been a really fun dynamic for us as well. Well, I don't want to spoil this completely, but one of the reasons that was really interesting to us as a mechanic was it forces you out of position. Like you can stand back and like snipe enemies from long range using some of these powerful attacks, but if you kill a guy who's too far away from you, he's just going to respawn. So it flushes you out of your cover and kind of puts you into some awkward situations. So.
All right, Greg, so something else I wanted to touch on, obviously the art style of this game sort of has this very unique, almost cyberpunk-esque look to it, very different from what was in the original Bastion. Can you talk a little about, perhaps about the inspirations behind this world style?
Yeah, I mean, the way, it's really important to us that this game have its own identity, and like we wanted to make a whole new game, I guess the simplest way to describe it is like if Bastion is our take on the fantasy genre, then this is our take on science fiction. We wanted, we were interested in exploring like some of the ideas of these types of science fiction worlds, like an urban setting. The setting of this game is a city, stuff like that. And we love like cyberpunk type stuff, and at the same time, it's been done so well in so many games that we just don't want to do the straight ahead like cyberpunk thing just because it's already been done well so many times. We'd rather kind of find our own approach to it, and it took a long time. Just like with Bastion, it takes us a while for our ideas to like coalesce into something relatively coherent, and this is what we came up with. So yeah, we hope once again it's a world of kind of very interesting mystery and depth that people can like learn a lot about as they play through it in a way that's not kind of distracting. They just naturally get kind of pulled into it and become invested in what's happening to the characters and what's happening to this location and stuff like that. So yeah, it's the inspirations are almost too numerous to mention because it's games and books and films and all kinds of different things, and the inspirations are unique to each member of the team as well to a certain extent. There's no like, we don't approach this stuff from like we want to do this game meets that game or something like that. It's just a more like organic process for us, I think.
So what were the advantages of going with this new IP, Transistor, instead of just making a Bastion 2?
I don't know that there are any advantages in the sense that like, advantages is like not the term we would use to describe it. I think it's like, it would have been easier for us, I think, just to make a Bastion 2 or whatever, but we really enjoyed making a world from scratch on Bastion and creating, I would sort of put it that way, and with this, it's a chance to do it again. I think like world building on Bastion is something that was a well-regarded part of the game, and we wanted to see if we could do it again, and both like thematically and gameplay-wise, we're doing stuff with this game that I don't think would make a ton of sense in Bastion. So it's an excuse for us to like explore a bunch of stuff that I don't think would feel right in Bastion's world. So that's why we wanted to do it. Whether it's the right thing to do, I think, is for the people at PAX to decide. Thankfully, they seem to be enjoying it thus far.
Yeah, you guys, as I mentioned earlier, you guys have a massive crowd here. Can you speak at all about sort of what the response has been like?
Yeah, I mean, the response has been awesome. I think we're all sort of, we just really appreciate it, because if not for Bastion, we wouldn't be able. Bastion's success is what enables us to work together as a team again, self-fund another game, and just like make the game we want to make again. So that it's not lost on us that it sort of requires a lot of faith from our fans to pull off something like this, because a lot of these people, they love Bastion and they would probably like for us just kind of to keep doing that stuff. But I think a lot of people, what they liked about Bastion was that it wasn't like something that they had played recently or something like that. It felt different, and so creating that different feeling, making something that doesn't feel quite like stuff that you've played recently is really important to us. So we're, again, just above all, really really for the response we've had so far. The feedback that we get from people is immensely valuable, because this is still early. The game isn't due out until early next year. So this is really going to kind of embolden us to keep pushing forward and make this game better and better. So we're just happy that people like what they've seen of it so far.
And speaking of release, are you guys still aiming for the same platforms that Bastion saw?
It's too early to say with regard to platforms. I mean, I don't know that anyone knows what's going to happen over the next 6 or 12 months with regards to new gaming platforms. So we're as interested to see how that stuff pans out as anybody. And we gained a lot of experience on Bastion. Like we brought the game to multiple platforms and tried to make sure each version of the game was really solid. So I think that puts us in a good position to make sure we kind of do the right thing for this game when the time comes as well. So,
all right, Greg. Well, thank you so much for chatting with us. Enjoy the rest of the show.
Thank you. You guys too. Thanks a lot.